everyone. My name is Christine Harding, and I'm with the National Cryptologic Museum Foundation and the Cyber Center for Education Innovation. We welcome you to our cybersecurity chat. Our guest today is Teresa Shea, Shea from Raytheon. She is Vice President of Cyber Offense and Defense Experts, otherwise known as Codex, for Raytheon Intelligence Information and Services, Cybersecurity and Special Missions. She works on continuing Raytheon's legacy of classified work with the United States government, intelligence agencies, and programs. Codex is focused on providing cyber capabilities for offense, defense, and security initiatives. She is going to talk to you today about women in vulnerability research and reverse engineering. So welcome, Teresa, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christine. That was quite a mouthful, I know. Every time I hear the pronunciation of Codex, which is the abbreviated, of course, cyber offense defense experts, I always shake my head. That's a mouthful to get out. But thank you very much for that kind introduction. And thank you, students, everybody that's joining us this afternoon. I really appreciate all of you being here. I know I am thrilled and honored to be asked to do this. I got strict instructions beforehand not to screw it up because I think we're at the tail end of doing these classes, so I'll do my best. I wanted to start a little bit about giving some of my background. I had a long career at the National Security Agency. I started there as an electrical engineer. It's been over 3 decades now. And when I started, I was building radio frequency systems to conduct the mission of signals intelligence. And you can think about signals intelligence as providing foreign intelligence to our policymakers on signals, both for the military support to military operations, as well as all the decision makers across the government and our stakeholders in making critical decisions. So after doing that for several years, I started working part-time to raise I have 2 daughters who are now grown, and I have grandchildren now. But while I was working part-time, I got a master's degree, and I concentrated on digital signal processing, which really is what led me into cyber operations. And when I came back full-time, I eventually ran a group called Tailored Access Operations that operates in the computer network exploitation area. That was our mission. And I retired from NSA in 2015 as the Signals Intelligence Director. And I gotta tell you guys, it was an honor to serve there every day. I would really encourage all of you to think about a career in national security. The mission there is about saving lives, and it's significant. And you're gonna find that it can be some of the most rewarding times of your life as you see the difference that you can make every day. Today, I wanted to talk about women in the cyber field because diversity is essential to the success of our nation. And it's especially important in cyber because you guys may or may not know, this field requires a lot of critical thinking and a lot of curiosity. And diversity naturally brings both of those. It doesn't suffer from groupthink, and there's always lots of questions that get asked. So my focus these days has been more on the reverse engineering and the vulnerability analysis to find those bad guys in software and systems and identify them and get them fixed before the bad guys can take advantage of them and attack our systems. It's a good business to be in because there's an awful lot of vulnerabilities out there, and every piece of software that was written usually has some sort of holes in it. So we continue to find vulnerabilities across this ever increasing landscape of networks and interconnectivity. My whole premise here, if you'll buy into it, is that the cyber field has its roots in cryptanalysis. And cryptanalysis is that advanced, thank you. Cryptanalysis is that advanced study of making and breaking codes. It really requires that combination of Sherlock Holmes-like detective skills with hacker-like abilities to discover those hidden aspects of a system. Now, I know all of you have grown up with computers and the internet, but guess what? Both of those were invented. I can remember back in the mid-70s between Bill Gates, who started Microsoft, and Steve Jobs, who started Apple, the personal computer really was born out of that. And the internet, a little bit different story because it was an invention that came out of the United States government. It was funded under an organization called ARPANET, which is now the Defense Advanced Research Projects, back in the late 60s. And they really developed the internet to ensure communications in the event of a nuclear war. They were really worried about that back in the late 60s. But now look at us. We're talking about things like the 5th generation of cellular networks. And 5G is going to bring with it much greater bandwidth. It's going to increase our speed of how we interconnect. The interconnectivity of devices is going to dramatically grow. Soon, your toothbrush is going to be talking to you. And then you have this onslaught now of artificial intelligence. We know that today as machine learning, as we're teaching machines to learn their environment and take actions, it's pretty scary, but it's also pretty exciting. And both of these are going to have big impacts on the cyber field, and especially on the reverse engineering and the vulnerability analysis, which I think is just going to increase in importance as we search to determine the real origin of actions and extracting that knowledge from both the software code as well as trying to discover the original designs and architectures. We want to be able to answer questions like, why is this happening? And furthermore, how is this happening? But before I talk a little bit about that, I have to acknowledge the giants on whose shoulders we stand. I know for a fact I stand on these shoulders. First, I just wanted to mention Elizabeth Smith. You may not know her by that name. She married William Friedman, and the couple are often considered the Adam and Eve NSA. It's an interesting factoid that after she died in 1999, she was inducted into the NSA Hall of Honor, which is quite an honor. And we also named an auditorium after her and William at NSA. She was a poetry scholar, which I think is really important to point out, that this woman that did so much in deciphering codes actually studied poetry. So she wasn't an engineer. I know they didn't have computer science at the time, but she was brilliant. And even after she retired, she and William published a book called The Shakespearean Ciphers Examined, where she called into question the authorship of Shakespeare's plays. She was quite impressive. To me, her most notable was her contributions to the US war efforts. During World War II, she broke 3 separate Enigma machines. And you guys all know that those were the machines that the Germans used to communicate securely, or so they thought. She certainly was an inspiration for all women trying to break into this field. And then I wanted to talk about Cara Christie. I knew Cara Christie personally, so she's a personal hero to me, but I know she's also a hero to many others. She was not only admired for her brilliance, but also for her servant leadership. She really looked to serve others. Her field of study in college was English and history. She got a degree in both of those. And when all the men were sent to the front lines in World War II, the Army reached out to those few women's colleges that existed at the time, looking for talent that they could bring to bear on deciphering codes. And Anne was recruited, and she joined the Army Signal Intelligence Service. She's known most for deciphering the Japanese Purple Code. She was one of the first individuals who knew that the Japanese planned to surrender. And that's the kind of exciting stuff you get exposed to in a national security career. She became the first female deputy director in 1980 at NSA, and we all really appreciate what she did for all of us. Now, if you could go to the next slide, I did want to shift to a high-level discussion, and high level is the key here, on reverse engineering and emulation, and then a little bit about vulnerability analysis. The whole purpose for reverse engineering and emulation that I'm going to speak to is to identify system vulnerabilities. So reverse engineering is about creating a model or an emulation of what you're trying to analyze, whether it's hardware, software, firmware. And the model really lets you break down the problem into a smaller set of building blocks that you can analyze individually. You guys, most of you being high schoolers, know that the way to solve tough problems is to break them down into smaller problems and then solve the smaller problems and build up. That's exactly what you're doing in reverse engineering. And of course, an important step here is being able to verify and validate your model. This is often done independent of the original team. So we call this the testing process to prove or disprove your conclusions. And since, as Christine said, our work is in response to the national security mission, we want to make sure that we get it right. Yeah, so just a few words about vulnerability research. As we talked about, a vulnerability is a weakness in your system that bad actors exploit, such as an attack to gain unauthorized access. Sometimes you may have heard of vulnerabilities as referred to as the attack surface. And when we talk about attack surface, we are talking about the growing interconnectivity of devices. And as more and more things become connected, you can remember my reference to the toothbrush. If you connect to the toothbrush, that can often lead you to other devices so that you get into the heart and soul of where you're seeking to go. So it's really critical to understand vulnerabilities on a system so that they can be addressed and you can mitigate the risk of being hacked. Not only to protect the users on the system, but also all that valuable data. We're using a combination here of static analysis, which is more manual, and dynamic analysis, which is where we write scripts to run on the model to identify vulnerabilities. It's clear to me that we're always going to need that static analysis, that human, that subject matter expert that knows the process, understands the system, and can focus the dynamic analysis on different concerns. That's where that curiosity really comes into play. And once we find something, it goes over to be tested, or if you will, validated and verified. And it's pretty exciting work because every day it's different. So I wanted to talk about two of our superstar women that are in this business today. First, Amanda Anderson, who is actually a vulnerability research engineer. She has provided multiple capabilities to support our nation's security, and she's also a leader. She's a group leader, so she has 6 engineers that work for her, but more importantly, she serves as our intern lead. If you're thinking at all about the cyber field, I'd really encourage you to look at being an intern for Raytheon or one of the national security missions. You learn a lot if you do the intern or the co-op or something like that, so that you can get some hands-on experience before you graduate. For our interns, and I'm sure for others, first impressions are very important. It's a highly competitive field. We're constantly competing for talent in this field. And having Amanda be the lead for our interns has proven to be just terrific. She not only provides that challenging technical work, but she also provides mentorship. Some of her social experiences that she provides to the interns are documented in the halls of history at Raytheon Codex. She knows how to have fun, so it's been a great experience having her lead them. The next person is Elise McConnell. So now I'm going to shift completely to the other side, because Elise leads our test engineering group. She has about 24 engineers that work for her, and she ensures that our products, our findings are reliable and that they meet the mission goals of the customer. She's produced cyber products of her own that have proven to be invaluable. And so I really want to thank both Amanda and Elise for leading the way for women in the field. I did ask them both to give me a little bit more insight. For example, I asked them to talk a little bit about their days and how they spend their days, so you could get some sense of what they do when they come to work every day. You can see that Amanda starts her day, or she spends a majority of her day in the morning really learning what's new in the field. There's always something new in this field, and so she's constantly increasing her own skills so that she can be known as the subject matter expert. She also likes to focus on the most important threats to saving lives. And so a couple of examples here are medical devices. You can imagine that, if somebody has a pacemaker and you're able to break in to that pacemaker and cause it to do something that it's not supposed to do, it could actually cause great harm to the individual. Connected vehicles, we've seen a lot of hacks into vehicles that have ended up in catastrophes. So she's really working to secure those kind of devices. Elise, on the other hand, she spends her day really leading her team. And lately, Elise has been dealing with COVID-19 across the entire organization. When we first got hit with the COVID, we were all coming into the office working in SCIFs, and we had to send everybody home. I asked Elise to take the lead, and she came up with a solution to give people the ability to work from home, which required a specific network setup so that they could log in. When you're in a position like Elise, who's one of my many engineering managers, you're often asked to step up and take on other duties. I just want to encourage you guys to do that. I know Elise has told me that this experience of leading all of Codex for COVID has exposed her to a much broader set of people that she never would have known otherwise. It's also given others an opportunity to see and meet Elise and see how she shines. She's rigorous in her own learning new things. There's never enough hours in the day to accomplish all that you want to accomplish. So she does prioritize to try and get the hard things done early. Let's just talk a little bit about educational background. So, remember Elizabeth, the poetry major, one of the most outstanding cryptanalysts that ever lived, and then Cara, Christie, history and English. It just drives home the point that there is no prescribed educational background that's required, at least from my group. in getting into this business. I told you guys I'm an engineer by long ago degree. I haven't done engineering in a long time, but that's how I got started. Amanda does have a degree in computer science. Elise, on the other hand, has an environmental science degree and a chemistry degree, but she was drawn into this field and she really found that she loved it. So it really doesn't matter. I think the important thing is curiosity and really liking the work that you're doing. If you're at all interested, I'd recommend you start by just Googling how to become an ethical hacker. You're going to find all kinds of courses on penetration testing for beginners that can really expose you to the vulnerability research and the reverse engineering, and go for it. I mean, it's free. You have really nothing to lose and a lot to gain. And then my last slide, if you don't mind going to it, Christine, it really gets to the question of why did these women join this specific field? It's certainly not an easy field. It's difficult and challenging, but they believed in the mission of protecting others, and finding these vulnerabilities so that they can get fixed is very rewarding. They find the work challenging and full of surprises. They get to work with a creative, fun group of individuals, I think all with the same passion for making the world a safer place. But I just want to end with, we started this conversation about diversity and how important it was. And I just want to reemphasize that we as a country need that more than ever. So with that, I'll stop talking and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
So Teresa, you had mentioned internships early on that not Elise, but I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, Amanda leads our interns. Right.
So how, is there a preference on where a student is in their education? For example, do you prefer interns that are juniors and seniors in college, or, if they were younger, is there any kind of minimum age or year in college that you look for interns?
There's not a minimum, so we're pretty wide open. We do have locations. I mean, depending on where the student wants to intern, we have locations. I'll just throw this advertisement out. 15 different places across the country. So we have a lot of opportunity for that. The important thing to us is that the intern gets a good experience. So we want to make sure that we can provide that challenging work. And we also we're looking for those interns, those individuals that do have a desire to work in the national security field, because we'd like to pursue and up through getting them a security clearance, supporting that, so that they can do classified work after they graduate.
Terrific. You had mentioned, I loved your reference to the toothbrush. Pretty soon toothbrushes are going to, tell us what to be doing. What other kind of innovative work can you see coming down the horizon?
So you said toothbrush? I'm sorry.
No, you made your reference to the toothbrush.
Oh yeah, the toothbrush. Yeah. So this, with the reality of 5G and the interconnectivity of devices, you are going to see this expansion of an ability to connect to just about anywhere, to anybody, anywhere at high speed. So I think what you're going to see, and we're already starting to see it, maybe COVID has driven some of this, is you're going to see more and more of this media expansion online. So individuals will have fast access to high bandwidth media, as well as gaming. All that is going to grow as people spend time, more and more time, I think, in their homes, quite frankly. And it worries me a little bit because I do think, at least from our perspective, the collaboration of the person-to-person collaboration is really important. It's that, bringing everybody together and playing off of each other and generating ideas that way and asking questions that way that is really successful. But I'm getting off topic. The other technologies that I think are going to really change the way we do business is quantum computing. That's certainly coming down the line. We've seen we've seen with COVID-19, we're not prepared for what's happening in the biology field. I know I spent time working for a small not-for-profit company called Incutel that does investments in startup companies. And some of the biotechnology firms what they were doing there was incredibly impressive and was taking away the need for things like plant-based perfume because they could generate the plants from biology. And, just the storage that, that they're able to use with biology. It's just that field is exploding. And I think you're seeing more and more investment in it as a result of this pandemic, which quite frankly, it's about time, huh?
Teresa, we have a question that says, how did you overcome the difficulties of being a woman in a man-dominated field? And so I'd like to add on to that question as well to the student, and maybe how would you advise these young ladies who are on this call of 63 students on persevering and being a part of this solution, knowing that we have 500,000 jobs we can't fill?
Yeah, so I'm not sure, Mark, I ever did really ever overcome that. I just still see it today. When I go to a leadership meeting, it's still mostly, in fact, predominantly, in fact, I'm the only female in the room meeting. So, it's still a challenge. I know I have a daughter in her mid-30s who's also an engineer, and she says, Mom, why didn't you change this? Why do I have to deal with this? You should have taken care of this when. So it takes, look, let me first say, if anybody needs any help or support, I'm available. I will help anybody achieve success in this field. So I'll put that out there. I think we have to network more. We don't get out enough. I know I was an introvert when I started. I had to learn to put myself out there and become more extroverted. And we have to be able to get out there more, connect with each other and support each other. I think sometimes we're harder on each other than, others are. And I can't really figure that out. But we just need to get over it and help each other succeed and be proud of seeing each other succeed. I think that's a big part of it. The advice I give, though, I think to any young lady who's at all interested in this is don't give up. There's a lot of us out there pulling for you and supporting you, and it does get hard. There's no question about it. I can remember, I was in college long time ago, late 70s, so that was a long time ago. And I can remember, I went to Georgia Tech. And I can remember going into my college professor's office and just kind of camping out because I didn't understand anything. And, asking all these questions. And a couple of my professors got a little frustrated with, one of them even said to me, well, women just don't think the same way as men. I said, that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. But today, I'm on the Georgia Tech board. They reached out to me and asked me to be on their board. So look at that. I mean, so I hope that can be an inspiration. And I hope that all of the young ladies and men know that we support them and we want to help them.
We have another really great question here. It says, what should I do or learn now if I'm interested in going into national security?
Yeah, you guys know to go into national security, you're going to need to get a security clearance. So I'm just going to start with that because that's usually a little scary to people up front. And to get a security clearance, you can't break laws. You need to be a US citizen, and you can't have any long and enduring foreign contacts. That's usually hard for a lot of people, but the national security space is working with individuals to help in that. So I just want to put that out there first. To behave, do good things, but behave, because we will want to help you get a clearance. The second thing I would say for national security is, I talk a lot about, the threats to the U.S. and there's a lot of concern about threats, especially from the superpowers like China and Russia and Iran and North Korea, and whether you consider them superpowers or not. But I talk a lot about threats, and just sort of being aware of all that and interested. I think that makes a big difference. There isn't anything that I would add to. The national security space is looking for all kinds of talent. If you go on to the NSA webpage, for example, and you just look at their opportunities, there are opportunities for high school work study. There's opportunities for cooperative education, which I'd highly encourage. There's interns, and it's just got a plethora of information. And I happen to be, in my heart and soul's with the National Security Agency, but there's certainly a lot of national security agencies that have the same kinds of opportunities. And the earlier you get exposed to those kind of things, and maybe even do a summer internship in high school with one of those agencies, the sooner I think you're going to get hooked, and you're going to get to meet more people that can help you.
Another question about a really interesting one from a technical standpoint about quantum computing, and what is its effect on encryption methods?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, quantum computing is claiming now, with some of the major advancements in the algorithms, to produce unbreakable encryption. Whether you believe that or not, there is a lot of, you do hear a lot about quantum encryption and quantum decryption, and how is that going to play in this space, and how more difficult it's going to be to break quantum encrypted algorithms in the future. That's why I think we are in a race with some of our major adversaries. China in particular is a leader in quantum computing. And we are really trying on the US side to get back in a driver's seat so that we can have a similar capability, because you're not going to be able, and I'm not the expert here, but from what I read and understand, you're not going to be able to break a quantum encrypted communication unless you have a quantum ability to apply to it. So it's kind of one of those, we usually, like I said, breaking codes requires a lot of creativity and a lot of different things, but I think it's just going to become more of a challenge, something all you guys can be up for.
What kind of education or prior experience do you need to be an intern in this field?
So it, again, depends on really what you want to do. So I'll just say, for example, at Raytheon, we're looking for those computer science engineers that have the basic course curriculum that we can bring in, and then we can train, usually to write code. Sometimes we bring them into sort of the testing aspects so that they can learn about the end game, the end state. But if you look at the national security space, they're looking for analysts, they're looking for language talent, they're looking for engineers, they're looking for computer scientists. I mean, I think I just saw an announcement from NSA where they're trying to hire 4,000 engineers. That's a lot of cyber talent. So it does cover a broad spectrum, but the bent today is very much on being more in the what can be claimed to be the technical space, more of the engineering, computer science, cyber types of degrees. Cybersecurity degrees are very popular. For example, any of that can apply, depending on, and to me, what's more important is your passion to actually do the work and what you bring to the table as a team participant.
How does NSA interact with other government agencies?
You go first, Mark.
Well, there's a lot of challenges. I was on the information assurance side. Teresa was obviously on the signals intelligence side. And so I'll give a little second, but Teresa, you're the star of the show today. But the collaboration has gotten better over the many of the years. In fact, Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, et cetera, I think since 9/11, we've discovered that partnership was a lot better and a lot easier to get things done than working separately. And that was a hard lesson to learn after 9/11. But we work very closely. I know here at the museum, we work very closely with NIST and all the activities and information assurance. So it has improved. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I certainly saw, for example, NSA has got a very close relationship with both CIA and FBI on the operations side, the signals intelligence side, for sure. And I certainly saw that grow. I'll tell you, it's interesting because it's important, and I would encourage you to do this, is to reach out when you first enter the field and start to meet people in other agencies from the very beginning of your career. By the time I got to be the signals intelligence director, I could pick up the phone and call the director of science and technology at CIA because I'd known him for 20 years. I'd worked with him for 20 years, and we'd solved a lot of really tough problems together. Trust me, we didn't always agree many times, but we worked together across the years. And that was invaluable to getting over some of the lower level, if you will, squabbling, for lack of a better way to describe it, but building those interpersonal relationships. At NSA, we were techies, no doubt about it. We were, it was all about the technical. We were all about making sure that our technical solution was the solution. At the human agencies, for example, CIA, they were all about the interpersonal skills. So it really requires you to build that interpersonal skills so that you have those relationships when you get, as you move up in your career, because you're going to need it. That's how you get things done. You pick up the phone and call each other still today.
Mm-hmm.
Will artificial intelligence begin to replace humans in the vulnerability and reverse engineering field?
No, not completely. Definitely, machine learning is going to be applied to the dynamic analysis of vulnerability research. But remember me talking a little bit about the static analysis? That's really where the subject matter expertise comes into play. And what that brings, what that individual brings, is that curiosity to point to corners, edge cases that the machines haven't learned. So I do believe you are always going to need, if you will, a human in the loop, somebody that really understands or is constantly asking questions of what we haven't looked at and why haven't we solved the problem.
You have provided these students with an awful lot of information, but what would you like to leave as your parting word, if you will?
I think if you will, my parting word, hopefully not too much advice here, but don't give up. I encourage you to seriously consider a career in national security. It can be so rewarding. your significance in life is going to be what matters the most. And I think your ability to be able to save lives every day and contribute to this nation's security is, you're just going to find that to be unbeatable.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, all the students that joined us today. My name again is Christine Harding from the National Cryptologic Museum Foundation and the Cyber Center on Education and Innovation. We want to thank Teresa Shea for being our guest today and providing such wonderful information to you all. Thanks so much and have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.